My name is Stan, and I'm the artist, and so I guess you could call me Stan the Birdhouse Man. Welcome to my little gallery. All the work in here was done by the artist Stanley Albrin. And at first I started with birdhouses. And I like the birdhouses because nobody else is doing birdhouses and you can be very creative. So I have all kinds of birdhouses, as you can see, and I finally decided that I would have a traveling show. So I had one in Miami Shores, which is not very far. But I saw how much work that was. I said, that is not my cup of tea. When I retired, I went back to school. I went to the Florida International University and I took art. And that's when I saw how I was so comfortable with it and I loved it. And I could spend hours with it and spend hours with the artists. And it's just a whole change of life. And I stuck with it.
Okay, so if somebody wants to become an artist and they don't have a lot of money to go buy supplies, how can they get started?
You don't need much money. How much money do you need? I mean, I think for $20 you can have a paintbrush and the colors that you need, and you learn to mix colors. And a canvas is cheap. I mean, how much do you think a canvas costs? When you look at those canvases, they're only $1 or $2. So that's not a lot of money. I think it's probably one of the cheapest things to get into is to be an artist, but it's also probably one of the hardest things is to sell your art so you can make a living at it. The first thing is you must be a reader. You have to read books and you have to read the newspaper and you have to watch what other people are doing and what they like. So if you were going to be an artist in the past, we'll say 100 years ago, well, you get books on what it was like in 100 years ago and what people did. And then you say, well, okay, I like that, or I don't like it. You reject it or accept it for yourself. And then you say, well, can I create something, or can I show people how I do it, so they'd be interested in it. So that's number one. Then you have to have the ability to be very thick-skinned in the art world, because somebody says, well, that's ridiculous to make a little thing like that and spend a lot of time. Well, and that's that person's opinion. But if he saw what some of these things sold for, he'd say, gee, that's a good idea, you know. But I think you just have to say, I want to be an artist, and I'm going to do, you start out like everybody else, and you start out with the pencil drawings, and then you start with the paper, and then you do acrylics and oils. You got to familiarize yourself with the tools that you have. And along the way, you're going to see something that you're good at, very good at. And you're going to see things that you're bad at too, but you reject that, or you say, I'm going to improve it. But if you want to do it, you just got to stick to it. You can't be the artist and be the salesman at the same time. In other words, if you're the creative person, you create the work. Then you need somebody who has decided to be a salesman or a gallery owner in his life, and you two have to meet somewhere, and then he will promote your work, and then you can go back to being creative and doing the actual work of being an artist. I love museums, so I go to a lot of museums and museum shows to see what other people do. And there is work that I could never reproduce, but then there is work that I say, oh, I like that, you know. And you see how other people can do things. So at the Perez Museum in Miami, it was a new museum, they had an artist from China who did his work in China and sent it over to this country, and his name was Wei Wei. And what he did was he made ceramic crabs, little ceramic crabs that look like a real crab, but he made thousands of them. And when you walk into the museum, you see this big pile of crab, and you say, oh my goodness, look at that. So yeah, you might want to get an idea. You'll say, well, I can't do crabs, but maybe I could do ceramic flowers, or I could make myself ceramic animals. And that's where some of the ideas come from. Then at the museum, this is a new museum in Miami. It's just fabulous. They had bicycle frames from China no wheels, just the frames, and they were all chrome plated, and he had 600 of them piled up in a mountain. And so what that story meant was that in China, originally, everybody used to travel by bicycle. And when they came into the 20th century, and China is a big growing country today, no one uses bicycles anymore. They want automobiles. So this is a monument to the people that used to ride their bicycles. Each piece of art tells a story. And getting back to this one here, the story behind this is that it takes money to do a lot of things, so you can use it for anything. You could use it for roofing, but if you can't afford to buy it, you could use the paper for roofing or anything. You can make substitutes for anything. Go to the art supply store and buy a little cheap little birdhouse. They have them in all shapes and sizes. Maybe buy 2 or 3 if you can afford it, and figure ways to paint on it, or draw on it, or cut paper on there, or however you think you can decorate it, and see if you can be better than me. And then if you're better than me, you're on your road. You're really going to go to success. But each piece that you have and create has a story. So you have to go and tell that story when somebody looks at something if you want it to be serious. You can't just say, this is a birdhouse, and that's it. Well, they're all birdhouses, but why is this one different from that one? And why is this one different from that one? And how long did it take to create? And why did you use certain colors? And how did you... It all takes time. This is called the condominium. This certainly wasn't a birdhouse when it began. And so I got this piece of wood, I think it was Home Depot, which is this wood here. And then I bought the top at Home Depot. It was a wood post. And then I went and bought washers. These are washers that I stuck on there. And from there I created a birdhouse. And you'd never know that it was never a birdhouse. So I decided that the magic number was 50. I made 50 birdhouses. And I had only made 2, the first 2 I'll show you. And then I said, okay, now I'm going to keep my eyes open for different things that will create a birdhouse. So this was one of them. And if you can see what it looks like, close up maybe you can see this. It looks like a $100 bill and a $50 bill. And these are exact replicas of the real money. And so I bought a package of the money, and I came home, and I said, I'm going to make a money birdhouse. And so what I did was I cut up the not the full size of the American dollar. That whoever made them reduced them so that happened to work out good on this birdhouse. So they fit on there perfect. And on this I cut it up into stripes. And as you work, your mind will take over and say, why don't you try this, try that. You don't have to need anybody to tell you to do it. And so you finally create it and you do the whole thing. And when you get through with it, you look at it and say, is that really what I wanted to do? And does that show people what you can do with your creativity and with other materials? So this is other materials, which is the dollars and I think there's 10s, 50s, 100s, and 20s. And so I said, okay, that's what I do. So I think it looks very, very nice and very different. You won't find many of those. It's the same as my one here, which I call it a condominium because it's got 1, 2, 3 floors, and it's got windows, and it's got a place for the bird to go in there. You could use it for a feeder. But these are really not made for birds. This is decorative art. This is, you have a den or a room in the house, whatever you like, and you want something to highlight the art in your house. One of these makes everything stand out because they see that it wasn't made by a kid and it has a lot of time and effort gone into them. So, I mean, some of them have taken me maybe 4 weeks to make, so that's not a hobby anymore. It's serious, but I take it serious because I want it to look as the best that I can create, and I want it to last. So you could put these in your house any way you want, in your office or whatever it is, and it's artwork. And it's really, we have to appreciate art. In fact, I was thinking maybe I would do a book and have the picture of the birdhouse on one page and the story about it, and then it would be 50 pictures and 50 stories. But, I'm not so serious about it yet. Thinking about it.
Do
But
you work in peace and quiet? Do you play music? What's
I
your style?
I used to do it with music. And music, I have a little stereo in the other room. And if you try to create with, we'll say jazz, well, that takes your mind off of whatever it is, and you're thinking like jazz. If the music is contemporary, today's music, well, it's got to have a certain mellowness. You can't have a strong beat or something. And then I used to create with Chinese music, Indian music, Egyptian music. I did music from all over the world, and I found out that every one of them changes your mood. So that's a nice way to do it. But now I like it quiet. I got to that point where I have to have it quiet, and I don't want any phone calls, and I don't want anybody to call me. And if I want to go in the studio for 3 hours, that's what I'm going to do, and I can't be disturbed. After I did the birdhouses, I decided to do some kind of a reproduction. So these are canvas prints of the same birdhouses. So here, this is the birdhouse, and this is the reproduction. So if you can't afford the birdhouse, the original one, you could buy a reproduction. I think they're good. So the next thing I did, I decided, well, I'll do a little variety so that when somebody comes here, there's something for everybody. So the next thing I did was stained glass images. And they're supposed to be looking like stained glass, but it's paper. And I think they're beautiful. And this is for somebody that can't afford to buy original stained glass art. This is paper art. So I did a lot of those. I'll show them to you. How long as they're going to be on film. This is another one. And it can go either way. And then I did one that's a little more complicated. But it takes too long to do it, so I'm not so crazy about doing those. Those are all little individual pieces, just like the original glass. I think it's terrific. I have bigger ones. And now I'm working on butterflies. This is where I work. So the studio is not state of the art because I didn't want it that way. There really is no electricity in here. There is no air conditioning. There is no telephone. There's just me and my art, which I love. The roof is all glass, so I have natural lighting. And this is my desk where I usually work. And I'd have it cleaned up if I knew you were going to come, but that's okay. That's what it looks like. So my new project is making butterflies. And the butterflies are made out of paper. And it's all my artwork on there. Then I made the body and I made the antenna. I made the complete butterfly. But he's not flat. It's got it so you can make the wings move or back. So when you put, wherever you put it, it has a little bit of life to it rather than just being a flat surface on a piece of paper. I like art. I just love it. I can get into my studio early in the morning. I can stay here all day if I want. I don't have to come into here if I don't want. It's whatever I please. And whenever I get the urge or the feeling that I want to create something, I have everything here that you could possibly need. It isn't big, but it does the job. And I love art. So, and that guy over there, Mark Rothko, is he's not my benefactor, just somebody to follow. art is hard to understand, but when you do understand it, it's magnificent. That's all I can tell you. That's it.